So here's a project that I did before Christmas for a customer who'd seen me at a market and wanted a bespoke moon arch making for their garden for a very particular space to fit their path. So I went along, had a bit of a measure, had a chat, discussed what their ideas were and what they wanted to achieve, and then got back to workshop and set to making. So this is some 15mm solid bar, and I'm tacking it together because it's got to go through the ring roller, and if they're tacked together they've got to be the same diameter. They can't not be, because if you do them separately you can end up over such a long length of a slightly different radius. So to tack them together and then put them through the homemade ring roller here. Now it's really handy having an extra pair of hands to help keep it vertical. This stops it from becoming a helix shape and generally keeps it fairly square, and that helps later on when you're coming to weld it all together and it not having too much twist in the metal, because the metal gets a bit of a memory. So rolled it through, and that gave us our 4 curved pieces, and then we needed to make a load of short pins, and then these hold the outer radius to the inner radius and make it like a sort of decorative truss, if you will. So there we go. So the best way to hold it all together whilst it's being welded is to make a quick jig or framework. So I made this out of some 50 by 25 box, laid it all out on the floor so that I could get the first frame all tacked together onto that jig, and then I could bring the second frame in and cable tie it on top, so that when I welded that one together it would be identical to the first one, so that we have a matching pair. I decided that was a better way of doing it. There's probably other ways of doing it, but it was quite important that they were symmetrical. So here we go, welding it all together. Lots of help from the dogs, as you can see. They're always keen to muck in and get involved, lick your face, all that sort of thing. So there we go, getting it all welded together. And then it was time to get it over to the mammoth welding bench, which actually wasn't quite big enough for this project. That's why we're working on the floor here, so that we could weld the other side and weld all the pins all the way round. So it's always nice doing bespoke work, particularly when people have had an idea for a long time but haven't had the skills themselves to do it, or haven't been able to find somebody else to do it. It's always nice when they to be able to achieve it for them. So here we go, welding it all up. Now the idea for moon arch is it disappears into the floor, so that's why the bottom piece is angled, so that when it's in the ground it'll give the illusion that it's disappearing into the ground. So because the bench isn't big enough, it got tack welded to the workshop door to give us a nice vertical surface. Then I made that other frame to hold the second truss, stand it off the appropriate distance so that I could weld in all the width stays. That's what we're doing here. We're using the trusty Artec 250 MIG, lovely machine, really happy with it, would recommend. And then it was time to start making the ground anchors. So the idea here was that these anchors could be concreted into the ground with the arch bolted on top, and then if the customer ever wanted to move it, or if they move house, or whatever reason they need to move it in the future, they can unbolt the arch from these ground pegs. And if they move house, I can always make some more ground pegs for the new location. So there they are there, nice and simple, but seem to work quite well. And there's a finished arch. So just about time to cut it free from the workshop door, which pleased everybody greatly, because it's quite an inconvenience having to walk around every time you need to go into the yard. So there it is there, and off to the customer we go, old school rolly fashion. Okay, a trailer might have been used, but you know, use your imagination. So here it is in the customer's garden. I used this really useful tool. No idea what it's called, but it's the tool for the job when you're cutting holes in frozen ground. Then it's time to trim the ground anchors to the right height so that everything would be level. And then because of the cold weather, I decided to warm up the holes using a healthy amount of fire, just to help the post fix go off properly, which it all did. Obviously this didn't cause any alarm to the customer whatsoever, so we're all good there. Tethered it so that it was nice and vertical as the concrete went off, and yeah, there we go. Really pleased with it. So